This happened 7 years ago, on the beach in Eastham, Massachusetts. Me, my brother, my cousin, and the girl I was with at the time were taking a night walk along the beach, as we often do, to see the stars. Having very little light pollution at the edge of the continent affords us a spectacular view, much more impressive than any we could find near where we live. We had found a nice spot sheltered by rocks to sit and soak up the sights, when my cousin and I spotted something off near the horizon. It was a bright light, nothing more, blinking on and off at regular intervals. My cousin and I debated what it was for a minute or two. I thought that it could have been a lighthouse because it was over land. Eastham is on the bay side of the cape, which overlooks the entire inner ring of land. After surveying the surrounding lights from buildings, we deduced that it was far too high in the sky to be a lighthouse. The idea that it was an airplane crossed our minds as well, yet it was stationary. There was no noise coming from it, although we may not have been able to hear it from several miles away. We didn't debate it for too long. It wasn't that interesting after all. There was nothing about it that said it wasn't something ordinary. So my cousin and I went back to chat with my brother and my girlfriend who had been talking a few yards away. And now for the part I can't explain. As we were in the middle of some of our regular banter, the three of them froze, jaws to the ground, looking behind me and up. At the same time, I noticed that my back had gotten instantly warmer. Turning to follow their stunned gaze, I looked up. Behind where I was standing and nearly 100 feet in the air, hung a luminous orb, suspended silently in the air. People with lesser powers of observation could have merely described it as a light in the sky. Yet I am here to tell you that it was infinitely more interesting than that. It was no ordinary light. I'm willing to bet that almost anybody old enough to know the difference is able to tell what type of light is being emitted by any device or natural phenomenon. Even when not directly facing the light, most of us would be able to discern the difference between light cast by an incandescent bulb, a halogen lamp, an LED, a laser, a TV set, the sun, the moon, fire. You get the picture. This light had a quality that I have never seen before or since in this life. It was incredibly bright, but it didn't hurt to look right at it, even though it was nighttime. It was bluish and gave off an energy that I could feel against my face, similar to the sun's rays. It looked liquid, almost alive, much like bioluminescence. All four of us were stunned as we stood silent as this object was suspended above us, and gawked. Finally, in my excitement and confusion, I lifted a finger and pointed at this sphere of light, saying, "What is that?" At least a half-dozen times. As if on cue, this object did something even harder to describe. To put it simply would be to say that it faded out, but that would be ludicrous considering just how it achieved this act. It moved silently in a straight line towards us and above our heads, all the while fading out from existence. It wasn't so simple as merely fading out like a dimmer switch on the kitchen light. It wrapped the darkness of space around itself as it moved and became a shadow, where once it was light. Imagine taking a lit light bulb and dragging it across the surface of a pool of black paint, slowly submerging it all the while. That's the best way I can describe it. Did it phase out into another dimension? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm just telling you what I saw. Once it had completely phased out, it did a loop and shot incredibly fast all the way back across the bay, where it continued to blink on and off at regular intervals. We sat and watched this for a while, now knowing for sure that it was something extraordinary. Eventually there were two. One would blink on, then the other one off. This spectacle went on all night. I fell asleep watching it out the window. They never came so close again, and in the years we went back to the beach, we never saw anything like it again. Every time I go back, I hope and pray to witness this again, promising myself that I will try and communicate instead of being completely flabbergasted. It was clear to me, and the rest of us present, that it was something that was under intelligent control. It wasn't very big, but it was big enough to fit one person at least. I leave it up to you to ask questions and theorize. As I said, I cannot explain it without speculation and conjecture. I will say a few things that it definitely was not. It was not swamp gas. It was not ball lightning. It was not chain lightning. It was not a plane, a blimp, a weather balloon, a star, or a planet. It was something I've never seen before, and something I cannot explain. I'm 17, and I live in suburban Massachusetts. This isn't a story about actually getting abducted, but one time I was out walking my dad's dog somewhat late, and I remember seeing the strangest thing in the sky. I had been taking care of his dog for a few days because he was away. So I went over a bit after dusk to walk her. When we were out, everything was normal, but in the way back I noticed a light in the sky. Sort of the same way if you see a helicopter, you look up for a second, acknowledge it, and then go about your business. It was dark, so I don't know for sure. But these lights had no noise whatsoever that I could hear. It just seemed to be 3 triangular lights floating through the sky in front of me. They weren't going up or down, just floating slowly through the sky. In about 30 seconds, they were almost out of my sight. Around this time, I had actually been watching a lot of UFO videos and things of the like. So it may have been just a weather balloon or something, and I just thought I was seeing a UFO. Still, it seemed unnatural, and it really grabbed my attention. Still interests me to this day as to what it could have actually been. In 1999 or 2000, I was working as a bartender in Connecticut. I got off early one night. I went home and was playing some games on my PC, and I went out for a cigarette around 2:30 or 3 a.m. The past few nights, I had been hearing strange noises in the woods behind my house. They sounded like animal calls, sort of like cooing, but didn't sound like any of the animals that were typically in the area. There was a hill out the back of the door, which led up to a neighbor's yard, and on the left and right of our houses was the woods. So I was smoking a cigarette and heard this bizarre noise. I started walking up the steps to the hill, and I could see the side light to the neighbor's house. I looked on the ground below the light and could see the silhouette of someone squatting on their haunches in the grass, and it looked like they were parting it and looking for something. The neighbors had 2 young boys, and it was a smaller silhouette, so I thought it might be one of the kids, but I couldn't figure out why they were out so late. I started walking up the hill, getting an eerie feeling, and the closer I got, the more detail I saw. I started getting into that. This is fucking unbelievable. No sort of mindset, but kept walking toward it for some reason. I was maybe 10 feet away, and it stopped and looked at me and stood up. It had mottled gray-brownish skin and stood maybe 3 or 3.5 feet high. The teeth were sort of pointy-looking, and the eyes were large and angled, sort of like a cat's eyes. However, they had a sort of bronze-gold tone to them. Everything finally registered, and I screamed and ran back into the house. Nothing else really happened besides my father saying I was a chicken shit the next day, and I should have tackled it, because it probably could have made a ton of money.